Hello, I'm Robin Reddick with BMC Software. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar, Avoid Sticker Shock and Gain Control of Your Multi-Cloud Costs. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. Our speaker today is Shaimal Patel. Shaimal is the lead product manager for TrueSight Capacity and Cloud Cost Control products at BMC Software. And prior to joining BMC, Shaimal worked at VMware, where he was responsible for the vRealize operations, product line, and also worked with network performance and security products. Shaimal has a master's degree in computer science from USC, and he also serves as an advisor and board member of Nuncio Labs, which is an AI platform for personalized marketing. And with that, Shaimal, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'd love to go down to the product and few of the use cases around the multi-cloud usage in general. So first and foremost, I think I just wanted to set the context on why this is important, especially in today's world. 84% of the enterprises have hybrid multi-cloud today, right? So this is not a thing of the future. People are having issues. People have issues that are faced by multi-cloud environment in today's environment right away. So what are the typical use cases of hybrid multi-cloud, right? So if you think about a hybrid cloud, it can be represented in multiple private clouds like OpenStack or VMware, or including or a combination of hybrid cloud from on-prem as well as off-prem environments like AWS and Azure. So this is a very interesting stat across the entire industry that we have found out that 40% of the applications have migrated back from off-prem environments onto on-prem, right? And this is a shocking number for a lot of people, because when people try to migrate to the cloud, they tend to think that the cloud is sort of free, or it's very cheap, or a lot of these assumptions that are made about the public cloud. But a lot of the enterprises and enterprise leaders are identifying that there's a sticker shock associated with migrating a lot of these applications to the cloud. Typically, the number one reason why people actually migrate back the production workloads to on-prem is cost, and this number two reason is manageability, right? So, and the product that there is a lot of product in the market today that help you solve. Let's say manage your budget on the cloud, as well as look at the costing of the cloud in general. But a lot of these tools are made from a breed which are serving the cloud, which are serving the applications which are built in the cloud, or enterprises that have been born in the cloud, like Netflix. But what we have identified is that a lot of our customers have found out that they're in the journey of migrating to the cloud, and they're truly still 90% on-prem, for instance, and there are challenges that these guys, the enterprises of today would be facing while taking this journey, and this tool is specifically designed to solve use cases which enterprises are facing during the migration to the cloud. The very interesting thing once you are in the cloud is the fact that there's about 45% wasted resources in the cloud. This is very similar to the problem statement that happened back in 2006, when my other company, my previous company, which is VMware, was getting really popular, and people were utilizing the virtualization world, but they were quite unsure of the performance and aspect of it. So they just did lift and shift of a lot of these resources and inherently created a lot of waste in the market, in the infrastructure. So these three are the top three problems that exist in the hybrid cloud, and especially in the public cloud environment. And it becomes very relevant because no longer the money is going to your IT department. It is more green dollars, actual money going to a different company, in a lot of cases potentially even competing in your own space, because Amazon's in pretty much everything, as a lot of us can know. So there are a few specific problem statements that combine as a group total of sticker shock. First and foremost, the visibility into multi-cloud spend is very, let's say, sparse at the best. So a lot of our big enterprise customers come in and say, our developers just use a corporate credit card and then swipe it on the AWS as well as and start using the AWS environment. Great. I mean, it's very flexible. You can start using some of these things. Obviously, it's fantastic for developers, but this individual $10 a individual instance or hundreds of these instances, when you multiply across the entire infrastructure or the company, it becomes millions of dollars that can potentially be without any visibility and without any governance in the multi-cloud environment. So there's definitely a huge problem in the multi-cloud spend. Second, the oversized resources. There is no tools that are I mean, there's a lot of optimization that you guys have that enterprises have done in order to rein in the cost of on-prem environment, but in the cloud, a lot of the resources are still very oversized, and there are a lot of resources which are underutilized. In fact, we're talking to one of the IT departments at BMC as well as at one of the big banks, and they mentioned that they have resources that have actually been running for last 3 years, costing them tens of thousands of dollars, but they're not able to shut it down just because they don't know who it is, and they have to reach out to the owner, and they have to actually ask his permission to actually shut down some of these resources. So there's significant lack of governance in the public cloud, and this all is coming at a time where IT budgets are shrinking and IT budgets are under pressure constantly to produce more efficiency, which is why it's essential for us to be able to make wise decisions while we make the decision to migrate to the cloud and know how much would it cost to migrate to the cloud prior to migrating. And the last piece is in public cloud, it's typically a new way of doing budgeting, right? So it's mostly budget by consumption. What it means is towards the end of the month, you get a bill. Typically in a lot of our bigger enterprises, they get 300 pages worth of bill from Azure, or like 400 pages worth of bill from AWS. I mean, obviously you can never go through that manually. You need a tool to be able to reconcile all these things. And you need a vendor neutral tool to be able to do this at a scale which basically represents the customer and not individual vendors that are giving just visibility for that specific cloud. So let's look at the key use cases that the Cloud Cost Control product is going to cover, and I'd love to walk you guys through the actual demo right after this. First and foremost, cost visibility, being able to manage the cost management, simulation of migrating a on-prem resource to migrate to the cloud. And once you do that, being able to optimize the resources once it's in the cloud and being able to report back. These are some of the use cases that are covered in the product that was released only a couple of weeks ago. And the next release that I'm going to covering some of the top topics that we'll also be covering as a roadmap item as part of this demo. So with that, I'm going to jump into before we jump into the demo, I'm gonna quickly do a high-level architecture view. Some of you might have already or used capacity optimization product from BMC. If not, the idea is pretty straightforward, that we bring in the data, performance data, cost data, and metadata, which is tagging information, application grouping, all that information into the shared database, and then we bring in the CMDB or BMC Discovery products, application hierarchy and logic into the same database, and we create all the use cases on top of it for customers to be able to experience a seamless experience between products, as well as if they have standalone products in Cloud Cost Control. So I'm going to jump into the demo real quick, and then we'll have a few minutes at the end of the call to answer some of the questions being asked either on the web or on the phone. So feel free to punch in the questions. We have team members looking at the questions and ask. We'll be able to answer them. All right. So this is the home screen of the product. First and foremost, just wanted to show if you do have capacity product, it is the exact same interface, and it's on the same platform as the capacity product as well as monitoring product. So TrueSight really is a platform that allows seamless integration on the data side as well as the experience side as far as DMC is concerned. On the home screen, you can immediately see that the monthly projected cost for AWS, Azure, and on-prem. Currently, we're supporting 3 of these endpoints. On-prem covers everything and anything under the sun from on-prem data side, which is OpenStack, VMware, AIX, even mainframe. Any endpoint that is on-prem that you can think of, most likely we cover it to get that information into the product. And we have the pricing APIs and enhanced pricing APIs and CloudWatch APIs from AWS that we use to bring in the AWS information. And lastly, for Azure, we bring in information from pricing and resource manager APIs to be able to bring all that data into the single pane of glass visibility for the customers. First thing that you can see on the product is that we are continuously updating our algorithms to forecast the right cost for the year on the right side, or for month. You can actually custom select a specific month that you want to get forecasted for. This truly helps you understand what is coming instead of being handed over the bill at the end of the month, like is the case with AWS and Azure. A lot of our customers always ask, like, how do you do the on-prem cost, right? So one way we actually do the on-prem cost is we actually look at about 36 individual line items on the on-prem data that we bring in, and this 36 line items are aggregation from total cost of ownership tool by AWS, total cost of ownership tool by Azure, and a lot of big banks, including Cerner, and Citibank, and big companies like Cerner and other big enterprises that have helped us come up with a very good estimate of what an on-prem cost for a Dell server is and how much does it cost to get a VMware instance and all that other good stuff that make up the on-prem cost. So you can do the apples-to-apples comparison between on-prem resource as well as AWS instance. AWS and Azure costing is customized to your own environment. What it means is we know if you have any specific contract with AWS or Azure, would automatically be importing that discount structure and will automatically be importing that specific contract that you have with these vendors, so that the forecasted cost is truly accurate and it's based on the information that your environment truly has. We update the forecasting algorithm on a daily basis. So if you have any spikes or if you have any marketing launch or anything that adjusts the market, we automatically correct our forecasting algorithms so that you're always looking forward into the year. One thing we try to do is a lot of our customers come back and say, our CIO has a goal that by the year end we want to spread 30% of our infrastructure on AWS, about 30% on Azure, and about the rest of 40% on-prem. That's an easy task to think about, but it's really hard to truly keep track of how much your compute spend is across all of this infrastructure, because AWS has its own infrastructure types like T2X large, medium, whatever. Azure has its own version of it, as well as AWS on-prem has variety of small and large instance types. How do you truly compare what is the spread of use cases of actual compute across all of this infrastructure? And we actually do that by dividing your entire infrastructure in a common denominator 2 by 2, which is 2 GB of RAM and 2 GB of and 2 vCPU of the instance type, and then identify how much your spread is across your entire infrastructure. In this particular case, you can see that AWS is forecasted to be about 80% of the entire infrastructure for BMC IT that we're looking at the data for, and on-prem is about 13%, which is pretty impressive for a big company like BMC. All right, so looking at the cost information from high level, fantastic. You get single pane of glass visibility across your entire infrastructure. But really, it really gets interesting when you start breaking down the cost by A, business service, and B, by cloud services. I'm going to go with the cloud service first because it's more easier to understand. It's generic enough for all customers. What we do in this space is we look at individual services that are coming up on AWS catalog. We're also looking at services on Azure catalog. In fact, a database category has about 5 services under AWS service catalog, which is RDS, Redshift, the S3. All of these are considered database. So customers really want to not care about new services that represents database, but they want to still manage budget in buckets that they're used to, which is database, support, compute. Tell me how much my budget is for compute this year. Tell me how much is database budget and like storage budget or support budget. And this is exactly what we try to help customers do. So we constantly map the entire catalog of AWS and Azure, and in fact, Google Compute in the next release, and then dissect it into buckets that customers are really used to looking at, and will tell you how much does individual components cost. In this case, let's take an example. AWS EC2 instance is obviously number one cost for BMC IT. We'll click on one of these services and very quickly identify, obviously get the same good stuff, being able to get monthly forecast as well as the yearly forecasted cost. Just wanted to show you very quickly that we collect every single bill item, every single line item on the bill, and then this is the details, like the super detailed individual line items for EC2 type of resources, and you can search individual resources that also combine into that cloud service. Obviously, most of you would not be spending your time in the details, but more in the aggregation, because that's where you can start taking actions as well as start optimizing your environment. So this particular view is by cloud services. It definitely helps customers identify individual components that they're spending their money on. On the business service side, this is very critical and very interesting because it really starts putting dollars to the applications that are running in the cloud versus on-prem, right? There are a few ways to actually get to this particular screen, and first and foremost is the BMC Discovery product, which allows you to discover application grouping, and it creates a logical hierarchy of applications that you can associate the dollar amount to. The second way to do something like that was to have your existing CMDB solutions, either capacity optimization or any third-party CMDB service now, the CMDB or any other CMDB that you have already established. You can import that into the product, and we will automatically create the grouping. The last piece in this particular release is the tagging information, which is if you're following the AWS tagging guidelines, we would automatically be importing the tags and creating logical grouping for you to look at costing per tag and things like that. So these are top 3 ways that you can group application. In the immediate next release, we'll have an ability to add a new group within the product itself by a specific criteria that you care about, and it will be dynamic groups. So for instance, you want to say, this is a group of all the VMs that are using less than 10% resources. You can create that group, and you can create, and you'd be able to see that within the product as a dynamic group that constantly shows the dollar amount spent on everything that is using less than 10%, and hence you can take actions on them and things like that. So that's kind of the vision for the product. If you take on one of the one of the services over here, let's say facility service management. It's a service that is running on Azure, and we can identify that you can see the daily values of how much does it cost to run the service on Azure, as well as the cost components that make up the specific facility service management application on Azure. It also tells you that it comprises about 5 instance types, but what it really helps you do is to help you identify how much does it cost to migrate this particular service from Azure to AWS. A lot of our enterprise leaders actually come back and say, hey, I think we have a pretty good use case to migrate to AWS, or a pretty good use case to migrate to Google Compute, and we think it will save us money. But and then it comes back to the people who are actually doing the math to actually identify if it really saves money or not. And they typically use Excel or calculators and things like that to be able to truly model this. And what we have helped customers do that was to create a single button where you click on the button and it does all the calculation for you. First and foremost, it fits the right resource to migrate from Azure to AWS. If you have a basic A4, it knows exactly the type of resource that you need on Azure, AWS side. It would, and then it would recalculate the pricing according to your own infrastructure cost and own contracts on AWS and Azure with just one click of button. In this particular case, it's 10% more money on AWS for the on-demand instance. So it makes no sense if you're going to go on demand to migrate from Azure to AWS in this applications scenario. But if you start going a year upfront or 3 years upfront, you can save up to 30% of resources, and that's very promising. And this is how you can come back and suggest to your management that, hey, it makes more sense to migrate if you're going 3 year upfront. But if the application is not going to be 3 year upfront, it makes it is probably too costly to migrate Azure and probably not worth it in that particular case. The vision over here is to be able to auto recommend the product, the migrations, as well as opportunities to downsize the resources for customers. So this is an interesting use case to migrate from Azure to AWS. But a lot of you might be thinking that, okay, I really don't use multiple hybrid clouds today and probably never going to hit that specific use case. But the use case that a lot of enterprises are interested in at the moment is definitely migrating their on-prem resource, and that's interesting. Let's find out a resource that's running on-prem. MSM product development automation. It's running with 2 instances on-prem. I click on that. I can identify how much does it cost on a daily basis. See that it has made of 2 resources. And when I hit that simulate cloud migration button this time, it actually compares side by side AWS and Azure and tells me that in this case, AWS is substantially cheaper, about 12% cheaper than on-prem even, and about 50% cheaper than Azure for the exact instance types that we have fitted. It automatically fits the right resource that you need on AWS to be able to go. But it also gives you an opportunity to override it and go even further smaller, right? So you can override the instance and you get the full catalog over here, and you can go smaller instance type, and it would tell you that it could fit, and it would tell you the projected usage given in the environment. Our vision over here is to automatically, so we'll be running benchmarks for customers. The idea behind that is that a lot of our customers, when they migrate to the cloud, they're, let's say, unaware that the underlying hardware could be very different in the public cloud, right? So when you're migrating from a 2 vCPU to 2 GB exact 2 vCPU in the public cloud, you might not get the same performance that you're getting on-prem, and it is nearly impossible for customers to be able to model that. So what we're doing as BMC is to run benchmarks on every single instance type, and we use the benchmark to guide the customers to a specific instance type that the customers would be able to migrate, so they have the peace of mind when they migrate. The performance is sort of guaranteed in a lot of ways. because CPU covers the majority of the performance in the performance sense, and memory is really constrained by the size itself. One additional thing that that I wanted to highlight over here is that we'll also be supporting Google Compute, so you can and also allowing customers to create their own private data center endpoints. What it means is you can not only compare your cost to migrate from on-prem to AWS, Azure, or Google Compute side by side, you'll also be able to compare your cost for migrating from data center 1 to data center 2, which is both on the private environment, right? So you can truly start creating a hybrid cloud arbitrage within your own environment and identify what are the best opportunities for your business to start saving money and allow the tool to auto recommend some of these things to you. So these are a couple of the use cases I wanted to show on the simulation side. One additional use case that I'd like to show is actually inspired by the Office of CTO with one of the large banks that we've been working with. They said that they identified that a Windows VM that is using more than 40% of the resource is a good candidate to migrate to the cloud because it saves you a lot of money. Okay, that's an interesting use case, and we can very easily do that with the tool. So obviously the screen is intentionally busy because it covers every single server that is tracked by the entire infrastructure in this area. You can dissect it by greater than 40%, as the CTO mentioned, and dissect over here by, filter it by VMware instance types, and what I have all these candidates that fit this specific criteria. When I hit simulate cloud migration, I can select one, or I can select multiple of these instance types for comparison purposes. And let's select one of these guys and hit apply. And you can see that the Office CTO in this particular case was right. And in fact, it was much cheaper to run this specific instance type on AWS or Azure. It's about 50% cheaper than running it on-prem. So this is one interesting way to also report. And I think we can show you the reporting part, but the reporting specific part is very easy. You just can export this to a PDF, or you can email yourself any of this case, and you can just save the button, save the report very easily. So any single page that you have, the reporting is very simple and easily accessible. On the Explore page, the idea is to be able to filter on anything and everything, including taxes, right? So BMC IT manages many accounts, and a lot of your IT organizations in an enterprise world would manage many accounts. You can filter them by individual account type, and it identifies the total cost, the forecasted cost, as well as the resources that make up that specific environment. You can start doing interesting things and report on them very easily as we migrate to the cloud. All right, so these are some of the use cases I wanted to cover today on the Cloud Cost Control product. I'd love to show you a few specific roadmap items that potentially that specifically talk to optimization, as well as other interesting use cases that we think we're creating a brand new segment in the market for. Going back to the demo. So overall, on the high level surface, we're covering 4 important pillars in the product. This is on the functionality side, and obviously the inherent pillars that is not listed on the slide over here is the reporting and being able to have the usability, but it's kind of expected from an enterprise product, so it's not listed here. So I think the top 4 pillars that we wanted to cover on the roadmap and in general our vision is, first and foremost, optimize and control cost, right? So when you're running in the cloud, I think people are, like we discussed, that people are evaluating the oversized resources as well as idle resources, and there are a lot more interesting ways to actually save in the cloud, right? So oversized resource and the And IWMs are no-brainer. Obviously, you should optimize them. But in the cloud, you also have an opportunity to migrate some of these resources from on-demand to reserved instances. In fact, a lot of the modern startups and a lot of the modern applications are also starting to look into uh, servers that like applications like spot instances. And spot instances are very modern way, and a lot of it has its own nuances and how to use it. So I think that is something that we want to help customers be able to do that as well. Identifying, let's say, identifying detached snapshots is another interesting way to save money in the public cloud, as well as identifying underutilized resources and right-sizing them is another way to actually save in the public cloud. Along with the optimization of the infrastructure itself, there are other optimizations that are available in the public cloud that were not available on-prem. For instance, a lot of the enterprises, when they migrate to the when they migrate and to the AWS and their large customers, AWS typically gives them pretty good deal or like some sort of contract which would say you would buy X amount of reserved instances or X amount of, and reserved instances work by buying specific type of instances that would potentially be used in your environment. So we also analyze the customer's reserved instance purchase and to tell you the number of reserved instances that you're utilizing optimally or not utilizing in the environment properly. And when we recommend customers to actually either resell the reserved instances back on the marketplace or switch them to a different reserved instance, which would potentially help them save more money. So that's additional interesting use cases on the optimization side. And proactive budgeting this is something that we really think that no other tool in the market is able to provide, and a lot of our customers are concerned about this specifically. The application view that we saw, the customers are able to associate dollar amount to individual applications. Let's take an example. If an application exchange server, which comprises about 5 resources, you're expecting it to spend $5,000 every month. That's a budget that you can set. And as soon as the forecasting algorithm is forecasting that you would cross more than $5,000 in the budget, it would automatically alert you via either email or alert on the product itself, and will let you know about the budget overage that's coming before it actually happens. So you can talk to the application owner or you can talk to the business owner. So we're the second very interesting thing that we're doing is to automatically watch for anomalies, right? So what we're doing is that if the application there was no budgets set up or no thresholds being set up by the user, we look at the usage pattern of individual applications, and as soon as the application hits double the last month's expense, we automatically alert the user saying, hey, by the way, you should probably look into this application because it is forecasted to use double than prior months, which is unusual for the environment. And obviously that's customizable. But the idea is to be able to create this proactive budgeting for customers on individual applications that allow them to constantly beat the sticker shock that we discussed as the primary reason of why managing the public cloud is very intense. The third thing is we continuously expand our cloud coverage, and especially we're covering Google Compute, and we're also looking into IBM SoftLayer and future enhancements in those areas as well. So that's always going to be our very strong pillar on our side for innovating. The last is the enhanced migration. Like we saw that the enhanced migration on the customer side is primarily designed to help customers migrate their on-prem resource to the public cloud at the moment. But as customers start to create their own private endpoints, private data center endpoints as cost centers, we'll also allow customers to migrate from one private data center to another private data center for cost optimization and performance optimization as well. So the customers not only have a more elastic environment, but truly a cost-effective environment that scales to their enterprise needs. So with that, I'd love to give you guys the link to more good stuff, as well as some of the demo and how to reach out to us, which is bmc.com/cloud cost. And I'll open up with I'll open up for questioning from your side. Robin, did you have any questions that you read so far?
I have a couple. So
yes.
One of them, Shaimal, is you talked about custom costs, and the question is can I include things like software cost or the cost of staff when defining my on-premise cost?
Absolutely. So 36 line items that I mentioned were specifically helping customers get to a very good estimate, but we know that it would not be exactly in your environment, and that's why the spreadsheet has additional ability to add individual line items that would customize the already good estimate to a specific the cost item that you care about. Because I think at the end of the day, if you cannot do customization on-prem, you cannot do true apples-to-apples comparison for migrating an on-prem resource to a public cloud, and it's critical for us to be able to allow that to the customers. We're also, like I said, we're also allowing customers to create multiple of these profiles. So not only you'll be able to say that personnel cost in Nevada is or America is let's say 20% of the total cost, but in India or China is only 5% of the total infrastructure cost. You would be able to create those individual profiles and start evaluating whether to migrate some of these resources to a China data center or India data center or not. Go ahead, Robin.
Okay, great. Okay, another question is if my costs change with my public cloud provider, is that reflected in the product?
Absolutely. So we do not take catalog information on predicting and presenting the cost. We actually look at your personal APIs with the personal accounts. What it means, not personal, but really corporate accounts. The specifics are basically once you set up, initial setup is to do the APIs and get the permission to access your account. And once you do that, we'll get specific contract information from your own account, and then analyze the discounts that you get, apply that discount to individual services, and present the data to you, which is exactly what you've been charged, and not an estimate of a catalog or any of those things. I hope that answers. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. And then we have another question in here. What is our differentiation to other solutions in the market? They have, for example, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the differentiation on our product is primarily driven by our expertise in being able to forecast accurately on the capacity optimization side. And we're undisputed, let's say, industry leader in capacity optimization and forecasting algorithms, and that's always been our very strong suit. So what we are able to do, leveraging that expertise, is being able to forecast individual costs as well as budget and help customers forecast the budgeting cost in the future, and help them avoid some of the sticker shock associated with it, right? So that's one aspect of it. And second, we have not seen any tool. A lot of our existing tools that are on the market are specially designed for companies who are already in the cloud. I mean, if you're already in the cloud and you just want to manage the budget that is coming from AWS or Azure, that's a different use case than truly having a hybrid cloud environment where you still have a lot of resources on-prem and you're evaluating to migrate to the cloud, and you want to know how much does it cost to migrate to the cloud and things like that. So being able to hone in on specific use cases that enterprises are evaluating at the moment is how we see our product to be different from existing tools who are catering to a different breed of startups and companies. Good.
Okay. Great. So one last question I have is, can we provide budget owners a view of their costs? So is there a way to report costs to maybe a business leader or budget owner for their associated costs?
Yes. So the notification can be set at individual application level. What it means is, let's say the business owner owns 5 applications. You can create a dynamic group for these 5 applications that the business owner has, and you can set a notification for this 5 applications and say, I want to be notified when I'm going to cross my $10,000 budget for these 5 applications, or I want to be notified whenever every month on this specific report of the budget itself. Either of those scenarios, you can create that within the product, and the tool would automatically send you notification in advance when you're about to cross the budget, or individually application to application owner. So the idea is that the only restriction that the product has at the moment is that the budgeting needs to be at the same unit across your entire company. So if you're doing it monthly basis, then the entire product works around the monthly budget, or quarterly basis, then quarterly budget for all applications alike. That's the only restriction, but yes, you can create dynamic groups of individual applications to send them reports.
Okay, great, excellent. Well, that is the end of our questions.
Excellent. I think we're about 2 minutes into the call. Did you want to add any 2 minutes from finishing the call on our end, right? So any other specific questions from, any other specific inputs that you want to add, Robin?
No, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time today to spend with us and learn about how we can help them manage their cloud costs. And for any additional information, you can go to bmc.com/cloudcost and get more information. And then there are also some attachments associated with this webinar, so please take a few minutes and go look at those. And I hope you will reach out to us with any additional questions or interest that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.